What up, guys and girls? It is Bobby.
And Sean.
And we are back. Sorry we missed last week. We've been quite busy on our ends. But this week's episode is brought to you guys by 10,000. Use the code Cronus15 for 15% off your first order at 10,000. Lots of new swag coming out by them. Highly recommend the shorts. The interval shorts, my favorite short. And these shorts are pretty sweet too.
Yeah, we love running in 10,000. Their socks are really sexy too. I wear them when I bike. Makes my calves look bigger. So I'll continue to rock those. If you're watching, you can probably tell that I have a 4K camera. Bobby can't, but for those of you listening, just imagine I'm even more crystal clear on the YouTubes.
Yeah, I can't really tell, to be honest.
It hurts daddy's feelings.
Hey, it's been a pretty busy week for both of us. What have you been up to, Sean?
This week was all on-campus interviews, so trying to land a job for the summer, and still lots of reading, writing the program for. I can't decide if I'm going to name the next round like Ranger Guide version 2 or just go with the random V number. So maybe like a V9, V10, maybe double digit it, but it's been a busy week. What have you been up to?
I just finished this past week. I just took my our in-service exam. It's called the ABSITE. Basically, it's our like yearly, yearly like test to see how we're doing. And like in our program, it's like a pretty big deal. It's like how we rack and stack amongst each other based on how we do. So it's kind of stress-inducing, put it that way.
And you were saying you only get like 5 hours of sleep at night when you were studying, right?
Yeah, this past week I've been kind of busy. Not really like I guess like just studying and trying to like cram, well, not really cram, but like get the last bit of studying in. So it's been kind of difficult trying to be smart in terms of how I'm studying, and then getting some sleep in, and then like taking the test on Saturday.
Like 3 to 4 months, and you'll find out how you did.
I think it's like 4 to 6 weeks actually.
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah, not terrible.
I mean, how many rounds of this do you have?
Every year.
Oh,
but so, at least the good news is that it's the same test that everybody takes every year. So then what it means is like the more experience you get, the easier it's supposed to get because you know more technically.
Oh, but
so that's nice.
I always thought that they should do that for like the Ranger tab. I think a lot of individuals that like freshly graduate tend to think that. Have you ever thought of something like a recertification?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before about doing like some kind of recertification, like not like the full Ranger school, but maybe like going back and doing like Derby phase, like rap week, just all over again, just like, but it's not, for us, it's not really a recertification. We have boards, like once we graduate residency, these are like essentially practice boards. Practice boards that we take because when we graduate residency, we take the real boards. And then that's when it matters in terms of whether or not we, graduate from residency and what have you.
So are you like, for individuals that have seen Scrubs, are you like a Turk?
I've actually never seen Scrubs, so I have no idea.
I find that really difficult to fathom right now. I mean, I feel like that's someone asking me, have you seen Suits? Or are you going to be like Harvey Specter? It's like, I think there are some practices where you're expected to have seen at least the television series or film that highlights your industry and profession.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I have never watched Scrubs before. I watched Grey's Anatomy. So for those who have watched Grey's Anatomy, I'm essentially Miranda or Sandra So, whatever her name is.
I've never seen it. 1 second. Hey, cut it out.
Are they licking? Is that what they're doing? They're licking?
Yeah. Hey. She's covered with... She's still doing it. Sorry, the you can see her in the screen. She's biting her toes.
Oh, couldn't hear. Anyways. So if you watch Grey's Anatomy, I would be analogous to Miranda, or not Miranda. What the fuck's her name? Meredith. Meredith.
Okay. Never
So
seen the show.
yeah, for those that have watched Grey's Anatomy, I am essentially Meredith.
Oh, that's not bad. You can't hear her in the background, can you? I feel like I'm like losing my
I
mind. Okay.
I can't hear anything.
Um, I think that if I was anybody on any show about law, I would be Vision from the Avengers because I just know everything and like a superhero. Or Dwayne the Rock Johnson from Hobbs and Shaw, where he just knows the law and how to get stuff done. I don't know. I think it's a normal jump for me.
But neither of them are lawyers.
Well, yeah, like, are any of us really lawyers? I think the whole legal profession, the more I get to do, I don't find particularly like super impressive. Like, not to say that like there aren't really incredibly smart individuals out there. Usually they just distinguish themselves by how well they write. And so I've got
Hmm.
friends that are incredibly good writers, but the practice itself, I've not heard someone reorganize an issue in court that's so mind-blowing. I sit back and go, how do they do it? If people like puzzle games, if people like playing Clue, Settlers of Catan, like any risk game, I feel like that's law school, and it's just figuring out how to play the game. And then once you do, most people that graduate are the exact same. I can't see like a huge difference between people that go to like maybe a top 30, top 50 school.
Yeah, I'll probably say that's probably semi-similar in terms of surgery or in terms of medicine. I think like when you graduate med school, there's not a huge difference between, students' levels of capabilities when they graduate medical school. I feel like med school, I mean, I guess there are like some not as good students, but I think if you're good, all good people coming out of med school are going to be good no matter where you come from. But then residency is when you become like excellent at whatever field you do.
Right. And what's really weird is the really big law firms that individuals compete to go to that are, you're on Vault, there's this ranking like Vault Top 50, Vault Top 100 for law firms across the country. And people that go to top 7, top 14 schools will give their left arm and leg for an opportunity to interview there. Some of their experiences are really limited when you're a junior associate. You're only going to work as like someone's research assistant, reviewing documents. But if you go to a mid-sized firm or even a smaller firm that doesn't have the revenue generation that these really large firms have, you're going to do depositions earlier. You're going to have FaceTime with clients significantly earlier. So while you're not dealing on deals with 300 to a million to $1 billion in value, you're talking to clients on a daily basis. So it's one of those things I would look at. If where I'm going to work, I'm going to get substantive law experiences, am I going to be challenged, or are they going to say, hey, this is like a bureaucratic model, you're going to sit here for 2 years and just review these documents, help draft subpoenas? Like, that's one of the ones. It's like, what's the trade-off here? So when you looked at Madigan, for instance, in residency programs across the country, are there big differences for what they expect of junior doctors versus at other programs?
Yeah, I think that's a very similar sentiment. Like every program does things differently in terms of surgery. I'd probably consider Madigan to be more of like a community level hospital versus like a large tertiary care hospital like you would see at like Seattle or like at I guess like anywhere in the New York City, like Cornell or something. So it's not nearly as busy, or the acuity isn't quite that, or the volume isn't quite there. So that's one of the, I think the benefits of being at Madigan is that we operate a bunch, whereas most surgery interns don't go to the OR the first year. And if they do go to the OR, they're like doing first assists, which means they're not actually operating. They're just sitting there watching and like retracting or like doing something to help. You're not actually operating. Whereas we at Madigan, we go to the OR starting on day one, and then we essentially learn how to operate starting from our first day. So like at this point, I think I have something like 70 cases or major cases, quote unquote major cases that I have in my case log, which means that I'm like the surgeon junior for a case that counts. So like at this point, it wasn't actually nice. The last week, I did a couple cases where like I felt like I actually knew what I was doing, and I didn't need the attending to like tell me the next step or do it. That I like knew what I was doing next, and I was like calling for instruments. Like I knew what I wanted to do before the attending told me what to do, which is like quite advanced in terms of for your first level. As an intern, you don't really, and pretty much this is the only place that I know about that does that. Like most other hospitals, like you don't even go to the OR until your second year or third year resident,
Hmm.
and even then, you're not doing like the big cases because our cases are relatively not as like high acuity, so we have a lot more like essentially same day cases. So that's how we learn like the surgical technique and using our hands and sewing all the other stuff, like learning the basics early.
Now we talk about shows that have like a certain flair. Scrubs was very comedy driven. Grey's Anatomy, I have no idea because I've never watched it. But I watched like Suits, for instance, and I almost think it has to be because it's a TV show, but it shows like, a single lawyer like this Mike Ross character or Harvey Specter. They are dealing with topics that are so varied and so broad, like they themselves would not have that many opportunities to deal with like those specific issues. They'd be much more narrowed in their focus, like an IP lawyer or mergers and acquisitions. They wouldn't be dealing with all these other topics. Is that the same thing in medical shows now that you watch going, that doctor wouldn't be doing
Oh
that?
yeah, dude,
Like
hundred
he's way more
percent,
specialized.
100%. Like we watched The Resident a little bit last year, and I'm like, this makes no sense. This dude's also an EM physician, internal medicine physician. He does everything, but it's like you don't like it's medicine, and I imagine same thing for law, is that you're very narrowly in scope and practice. Like you go
Hmm.
into a specialty, and that's only what you do. Like you might have some wiggle room to like, um, maybe to like do something that you don't typically do in terms of like, but like once you get to, but that's how you get in trouble. Like if you're not supposed to be doing like, I don't know, for example, like for surgery, like managing like diabetes medications. Like I could probably do it, but it's not technically like I'm not trained to manage somebody's diabetes medication. Like I could probably figure it out and,
Yeah.
and do it, but it's probably not the best care and not the best, optimal care for the patient where I could just talk to my medicine folks, my medicine colleagues, ask them to like consult them and ask them to weigh in on it. And that's like a much better way of doing it because at that then they get the actual professionals or the people that are trained to manage this stuff doing it. So I imagine the same thing for law too.
No, it absolutely is. Like, you could probably list off the top of your head like 45 different practices within, 7 to 10 industries. And each one has someone that's been working there for 22 to 25 years that specializes in it, knows it in and out. But on the topic of medicine, since we haven't talked in a couple weeks, I think we're up to like 430,000 COVID deaths or COVID related deaths, which blows my mind because I remember when we were talking about this like a year ago. It was like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and they're projecting another 130,000 within the next month. And with these new variants come out, can you tell me at least, and I don't care if the listeners know it already, but what is the difference in these variants that are coming out with the South African variant, the English variant? Like, should we be more concerned now?
Yeah, so essentially, like with any virus or pathogen or even human cells, you have some degree of evolution or selection. So like that's why like with the flu changes every year because the virus picks up new mutations that then it will influence how rapidly it spreads or how resistant it is. Apparently, I was looking at some articles about the English version, and this English version has a mutation in like the spike protein, which is like the like the COVID or the SARS-CoV-2, how it infects cells. So this spike protein mutation makes it more transmissible. There's like some other things that make it more resistant and just different. So like, but like how a virus works is that it essentially enters into a cell, like the host cell, and then it hijacks the host cells like production of proteins. So essentially, like it's like infects the cell. It convinces the cell to make more of the viruses, and then once it finishes making the viruses, essentially like lyses or like kills the cell and releases all the new virus particles. So that's essentially like the like the 5 minute of how a virus works. So like when it does that, it has the ability, or it has the ability to pick up new DNA from the host cell or pick up new mutations from the host cell. And then through like selection, if it becomes more transmissible, then that variant will then become the more dominant strain because it, is able to infect more and then reproduce more.
And so how would like an Osmosis Jones and his pill buddy defeat this virus from inside?
Who's Osmosis Jones?
You've not seen that movie?
No.
Oh, it's another medical movie that you have to catch. It's a cartoon with Bill Murray. It's great.
Oh.
Oh, it's disappointing. I thought I had a really good question there, medical related. So what does from your standpoint, if you were Dr. Fauci, so you'd have to lose a shit ton of weight and shrink down some. If you were Dr. Fauci, what would your guidance be to, let's say, military members and then to the regular public?
I mean, I feel like for the vast majority of military members, it's a different population than your standard like American population. Like military, generally speaking, are younger, they're healthier, um, less riddled with chronic disease like you have with your normal population. But you know, the military population, like I don't really think should be necessarily super worried about getting COVID. It probably, if you get it, like you might feel like shit for a couple of days, you don't feel well, but then for the vast majority, like 99.99% of active duty service members will be fine. Like there's only been
I,
like 2 or 3 like active duty service members that died from COVID.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because I mean, we talk about it, and I don't know, probably like 5 or 6 times now, but the link between the obvious, variables that make getting COVID very dangerous, the elderly and those with underlying conditions, but then those that are like incredibly out of shape or heavier and obese. I mean, like when Chris Christie got it, when, Trump got it, it's a weight related thing. So I was wondering this week, because the military is not as overweight as our general population, you know, why no one uses that as a case study to say, hey, there's clearly some signs for like self-care that we should be, taking a look at and comparing ourselves to other premier countries that don't have such a high death rate. Like, what are we doing, and why aren't we talking about healthy lifestyle choices?
That's a great idea for paper. Trying you If I had more time, I would consider writing that paper, but I imagine that'd be relatively straightforward to write. Because you just have to pull data from like the military population. You probably correlate BMI and like health, chronic health conditions with like the standard American population that have been exposed to COVID. That'd be a good paper to write. Maybe I'll write
Yes.
that paper. That'd be actually a really good paper to write. Talking about that'd be a really good way to correlate and show the effect of like having a healthier population on disease burden and symptomology, I don't know,
Symbology,
whatever.
symbolism.
Yeah, but that'd be a great paper. Oh, maybe I'll think about it. I'll try and do that.
I mean, I feel like you should, if you've got the time, because it's the I looked at COVID, and I still somewhat look at it because, it's an opinion and everyone's entitled to it, but it's frustrating that we've gotten to the point that we have with COVID in the country. Clearly, politics play a lot, um, when we consider how states are responding to it, and each state seems to have its own like firestorm at different parts of the year, whether it's Florida and the spikes early on, but now they're open, or New York locking down early, but now we're finding out, like 50% more elderly people were, died in the nursing homes. But to a larger extent, I was always selfishly upset because I didn't want to take it seriously because I wanted to go to the gym. I felt
Mhm.
this disease, this virus was impacting a minority of the population that was like, okay, you're elderly, you have pre-existing conditions. I feel like society can come together to make sure that you're taken care of, whether it's delivering meals or, just isolating and quarantining. But then when I saw that we had to take such drastic measures because people were lazy is maybe not the right word, but from a standard of just simplicity, I would say lazy and we're not taking care of themselves like they should have. And we're now the individuals that are healthy and not going to get sick from this are the ones that are paying a social cost. Um, so like not being able to go to the gym, I know is such like a trivial, like vain gripe, but that's just like a example of, I think, why a lot of people in the country, we're not taking this seriously. Like, why should I have to alter and wear a mask when I'm asymptomatic, even if I were to get the disease, compared to someone who is really not taking care of themselves? Like, is that a reap what you sow type thing? Ethically, what would your argument for that be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple approaches that you could think about that, like that perspective. It's like, being like a considerate member of society, I guess,
Hmm.
as a role that we, are obligated to play by being an American and being in a functional society. We do have an obligation to those around us to, take into consideration other people's concerns. But at the very same time, that like I see the other side of like, if you're concerned about your health, maybe you should stay home and quarantine and stay in
Yeah.
place. But if you're not, concerned about your health, if you're, young, healthy, not obese, have no health conditions, you're like 99.99% gonna be fine with COVID. Like there's like a
Right.
very, very small minority. I think the whole, pandemic has been kind of politicized in terms of, COVID bad because Trump made it bad. And then
Yeah.
that's kind of the sequelae of that. It becomes so politicized. But at the end of the day, like for us, you and me, like if we were to get COVID, we probably wouldn't even notice we had it. And that's the whole thing. Like for the vast majority of like less than age 50, it's like a 99.8% like, survival rate. So you have to really consider that. And like obviously, like for those greater than 65 or 70, it becomes more morbid slash mortal. But that's like on, that's something that you need like have to take the personal, consideration with whether or not you want to risk getting COVID and then spreading it. Like, you know what I mean? So
I
like
do.
for
I,
the
I like that. I like that, like, social awareness citizen remark. That was one of the things Trump said, months after the fact, like, if you're patriotic, you wear a mask. At that point, I think people had made up their minds not to wear a mask or to wear a mask.
You're right.
But it's definitely something that there seems not to be a middle ground. Nobody's like sitting on a news desk and having this discussion going, why should people who are going to make these arguments that, like, I should not be prohibited from my day-to-day interaction because someone else decided not to work out or eat healthy?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't they having that? It just seems to be, you either, we're telling you you need to wear a mask, and if you don't, you're an animal, and then we're telling you if you wear a mask, you're a sheep, and you need to be a sheepdog or a sheep wolf, whatever the hell, like the brutal guys say out there from, like, those military memes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that comes from like the media and politicization of everything that like, no like a reasonable approach isn't what's going to be um more popular or drive
Right.
views.
Nobody
Like
wants to be
honestly, like
moderate.
yeah, honestly though, like for the vast majority of like less than 50, like I think there's gonna be significant sequelae from this pandemic on our economy in the next 5 to 10 years.
For sure.
All this like money that we've essentially been printing out for free, like it's gonna, nothing in life is free. So, the price we pay now versus the price we pay in the future, for essentially tanking our economy for, I hate to use like the nothing more, like not just like a flu. It's not a flu, but for the vast majority of people, it is like a flu.
I mean, that's exactly right, but you're never going to see that on prime time.
No.
Because if we're at such a point now where 430,000 people have died, you know, I, I bet we probably get up to 600 to 700,000, by the end of the spring. And by that point, now we're looking, I mean, like nobody fathomed that number last year this time. But it's frustrating to think about what maybe we could have avoided with this, with hindsight, knowing that health and fitness could have greatly reduced the burden, not only for the human toll, but for the economy. And I know personally, it's been super frustrating here in New York, not from the sense that I can't go to a restaurant, but just like the arbitrary closures. If you fly into LaGuardia or JFK, you have to fill out this form online or do it in person to quarantine. Yet you could fly into Newark and take a cab and skip all of this, like, self quarantine direction from Cuomo or for De Blasio. And we're going to close restaurants. Macy's was wide open. The Christmas tree was wide open months ago. And then we've got people saying like, oh, now's the time. Like, if we don't open up now, like, we're going to have irreparable damage to our state and to, our cities. It's like, well, we've got a more deadly variant because it's more transmittable coming out, and it's, in a state just to our south, and our ICU capacity is filling up. And now we're going to say that we're going to be opening when earlier this summer it was not nearly as bad and we were adamant that we had to close. Like, I think it's really frustrating seeing leaders essentially playing politics and not addressing the issues that we kind of just highlighted with, what actually should be done and could be done for the population that is at most risk. But
Yeah.
I would lastly conclude on that, the population that is most at risk is majority of Americans. We're very privileged from the military side, and most of our listeners are military, and we're probably sitting here like, man, like everyone's fit, like this is not a problem. But what is it, like 60% of Americans, 70% of Americans are overweight or obese? Like, that's the majority of the country now.
Yeah, I think like 60% are overweight, but like 40% are obese or something like that. But it is, a significant portion of America.
Yeah, so
Plus
it's no
also,
longer a minority that we're, looking out for with our elderly. It's like, this is the bulk of America.
yeah, and I also think it's like a good point to make that it's like, if you're worried about, getting COVID because you are, at a higher risk population, you probably shouldn't expose yourself to situations where you might be exposed to the virus. Like like you probably shouldn't be, going, to the go shopping or go like, you should probably take the extra precautions, but like the rest of everybody else can probably, do their normal day-to-day activities, understand the fact that there is a small chance there is a chance it could get exposed, and there is a chance that you could get sick. But I think as a human being, you have the ability to make your own cost benefit analysis,
Yeah.
and that's kind of on you. Like, the government shouldn't be, but this is just me as like a libertarian, not like a medical professional. I think it's like the government shouldn't really be telling you how to live your life. Like, you should be able to have your own, like, should be able to develop your own conclusions and draw your own conclusions, and then live, you know have your own like cost benefit analysis where you say, I accept the fact that I might get COVID, but for me, like, I'm like 99.99% gonna be okay with it. But like for my grandma, I probably shouldn't go see my grandma, because if I have it, I give it to her, she'll probably die from it. But
Yeah,
these
exactly.
are like the decisions that, as like an informed citizen or as an informed person, you can make on your own without the government telling you that, like, hey, you can't go to a grocery store, or you can't go eat in public, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to the gym, you can't go to get your hair cut, because but it's like everyone
Well, I
has the
think,
ability to make their own decisions.
but that's where we are as a country. You're going to have one, if we make the argument, the government should be able to restrict, I say liberties here, but I'm not using that in terms of like I'm railing against centralized government. But like if we're going to on one hand say you can't go out that often, you have to wear a mask 24/7, you also have to be able to accept that people should look at you then and say you should not be out of the house if you are a more at-risk group. Like there seems to be like you're being hypocritical if you claim that everyone should be protected and that the government should step in, but then if your rights are reduced, like because you're an at-risk group from going to the grocery store, it's like, well, that's actually selfish. Like you're putting a significant higher burden on society because of a potential deadlier impact that you face, rather than just society at large getting through this very dark, dangerous period for, say, a month.
Sure.
Because people are fine with quarantining so long as everyone has to do it. But if people have to have different levels of quarantine, then all of a sudden now people are complaining just to the same extent that people were complaining just to wear a mask. It's like there are so many levels to what each person considers like an affront to their liberties. But it's like we said, that argument we should do this for America as a society, I think would be absent from both the left and the right if we went to those kind of extremes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's like the whole pandemic's been quite kind of politicized and used as a political weapon to damage, Trump and then for what have you. But I will be interested to see kind of the data that comes out, in the next couple of years about uh, like the death rates because that's an interesting idea about how you know that like 400,000 people have died from COVID. Like have been attributed to COVID, but like what about the overall death rates, attributed to suicide, substance abuse, depression, untreated cancers as a big one. People that have like other diseases that are not able to get the standard of care because they're, unable because like hospitals are too, filled to do what have you. So that's another interesting thing to see whether or not, the overall death rate is higher or not, even with COVID or,
I feel bad for kids.
oh yeah. And then,
Every single time I turn the news on, every single news channel is reporting how teachers want to go back, students want to go back. But then in the exact same broadcast, they talk about the teachers' unions don't want to go, or then teachers don't like. I can't get a straight answer on whether teachers want to be back in school or not. Um, like we've got some government mandate in states who should get the vaccine first. First line responders, teachers. The really important individuals that help society function. Who do you think should get the vaccine, or how do you think the vaccine should be rolled out or could be rolled out better?
so, talk about, well, I just want to say, like, for the kids, like, the risk or the, effect that this pandemic has played on the development of children, I think it's going to be, like, this generation of kids is probably going to be pretty messed up. Like, this is an entire generation of kids that we won't see the effects of the quarantine and pandemic for, probably another 10, 20 years. But then there'll be a like drastic shift in kind of how these kids are developing and maturing, so from a social and educational standpoint. Like essentially a lot of these kids essentially got a mulligan on a year, like lost a year of school. So like makes you wonder like, how much we're robbing Peter to pay Paul for these things, like, in the short term, like stopping the pandemic in the short term, but then we're gonna pay for this, pay for the pandemic and our, kind of draconian measures in 20 or 30 years when these kids are now becoming adults and then are having these educational or social issues because they never got the full socialization or education they normally should have gotten in school. But that's besides the point. um as far as like vaccinations go, it should go to those who probably need it the most. Talk about your people in the front lines, so like emergency workers, people in the hospital working in the hospital, you know, like people that are in contact with a lot of people, even like health, like like restaurant workers,
Yeah.
you know, retail workers, teachers, people that are exposed to a high volume of people every day should probably get it. It doesn't have to be just the healthcare professionals themselves either, but like people at risk or like elderly people should probably get it. You know, you want to give it to those that probably one are exposed to it more, and then two, you know, would potentially have more catastrophic results if they were exposed to them.
So you don't, you would say just like a first come first serve is not an effective, or at what point do you think it should turn to first come first serve? Is there a
Uh,
certain cap?
sure, it's actually interesting that you say the first come first serve because even here in Washington, I heard that like something like 40% of nurses in the hospital are refusing the vaccine. So at like one of the healthcare systems here in town in Tacoma, they literally opened it up to first come first serve because they had all their allocated for their staff didn't get used. So like the vaccine has a pretty short expiration date. Like you have to use it by a certain date or else it goes bad. So like they had so many extra doses because the nurses or like the staff didn't want it, refused it, that they had to open it up for like first come first serve in order to use it so it wouldn't go to waste. So I think that's a very interesting point.
Are
That
there
even
are there medical requirements when you're in a hospital, just like, when everyone has to deploy, you have to get the smallpox shot, then you have to get these random shots for different areas that you're going to. I wonder, can the hospital force people to do that? And if they don't take it, they're not able to work?
so they could potentially do that, you know, in the hospital. Like you have to, in order to for like preventative medicine, you have to prove your vaccination status a certain certain pathogens like hepatitis B, you know, smallpox, like you need to have your standard vaccination in order to like work in the hospital, I want to say. So they very well could, you know, force you or like require you to get the vaccine if you to work in the hospital. But I think a lot of places, including Madigan, have not, you know, put their foot down and said that because, you know, they don't want to, you know, because it's such a like a touchy subject in terms of we don't know the long term effects, blah, 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 blah. But like, I don't know. It's like they could, but they haven't because they don't want to alienate people and force people to do something they don't want. But at the same time, though, like in the military, like how many fucking shots of, or how many shots, like vaccinations have we gotten? Like, what does it matter? Like, I remember like going to deploy, it's like they just give you a shot. You don't even ask what it
Oh,
is.
it's
You just
just
took it.
boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
But it's like, I don't know why now it becomes like, like I don't want to get the COVID vaccine because I don't know what happens to it or like what my body does. So it was like, because you knew what happened to your body when you got the smallpox vaccine. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, it seems kind of, you know, contradictory and hypocritical to say that.
I just think misinformation has just been so rampant that nobody's going to trust a vaccine's efficacy. I mean, the note that I wrote this summer on informal rulemaking and how the FDA could use it to, expedite vaccine licensing scared me enough to say, like, damn, now I know what the FDA does to get these vaccines through, but I wouldn't distrust these government figures and agencies to put something out on the market that would have, such terrible ramifications as to make an entire nation sick from a bad batch.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, that's kind of the trust that have to place as part of being like in a society and civilization is that you have to place a certain amount of trust and faith in your, you know, people that make decisions that they have your best interest at heart, which can then can argue the fact that we're all humans, and then even the people in leadership roles are also humans and have agendas and have certain certain goals that they want to make. So it's like it's plus or minus. It's like, was it the one saying like 5 steps this way, 10 steps another way, or whatever?
or
The-
what? Yeah,
I don't know the idiom is, but you know what I'm saying, like 5 steps
yeah.
this way, 5 steps the other way.
I hope we can get through this by. I don't have any hopes for the summer, unfortunately. I wish by summer it was going to open up. My fear is long term, and I know we were talking about this. God, COVID's a year long now. But you were saying how in like Asian countries, people will wear masks more frequently during flu and cold seasons, or if they are sick, they'll wear a mask themselves out in public. Do you see that happening long term for the United States? Are we going to be wearing masks going forward for the rest of our lives?
I mean, it's probably like a good practice, like societal practice. Maybe not. It doesn't really reduce the transmission of like the cold or something like that. But it's kind of a social cue to let people around you know that you're not feeling well, and that they should probably give you a little extra space, and that
Right.
could be that what actually contributes more to reduce transmission of the cold or something like that. So I don't necessarily like that'd be fine with me. I don't really necessarily care. But I think if you're like healthy, is it really worth wearing a mask all around all the time? And then is it really worth people like getting all snidey and like make comments about how you wear masks and that how you should be wearing masks and like that? It's like I don't want to make that like a standard in our society that if you're out in public you should wear a mask. I don't think that's necessarily the right answer either.
Yeah. Again, because from a fitness perspective, it's impossible to run or do any kind of challenging high heart rate, high breathing rate exercise with a mask on.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%.
and I dislike how, people in the gym will look at you if you're on a treadmill running. One, it gets hot. It yes, the mask will like come down over your nose, and even my nose can't hold a mask to the face. Um, you wear it more than once, it gets wet. All of a sudden, it's sucking into your mouth every single time you breathe. People I see wear what are they called? Not the balaclava, but it's like a neck warmer, but they
Yeah, a
they
neck gaiter. Yeah,
they wear
yeah.
like a neck gaiter like that. That is equally as uncomfortable, not just uncomfortable from like I can't believe I have to wear this, like wearing a parachute harness for hours, but like I literally cannot breathe through this nylon material. And then a
Yeah.
face mask will fog. So like we're defeating ourselves at this point. You can't work out and lose weight or maintain like super super healthy lifestyles while wearing the mask at the same time. Like, so forcing it at the gym for a population that is very unlikely to have detrimental side effects. It's one of those things that we talked about earlier, the selfishness of it. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think what it comes down to is that you should be able to make your own informed decisions on whether or not you want to do something or not do something. And you're gonna have to live with the consequences of your own actions. Same thing as like, drinking and driving. Like, the
Yeah.
consequences of drinking and driving, but if you're gonna do it, you're still gonna do it. So like what does it matter? Like, you know, if we have to breathalyze everybody that gets in their car, put it like a, what I'm saying, like if I guess analogy would be like, to prevent drinking and driving, we should all install like the breathalyzers in our car so that we prevent, the one or two people that, it's like this kind of similar idea that, you know, that the government has to step in and give everybody the same like restrictions in order to protect, a certain amount of people.
Yeah. I just wish that rather than putting this on the citizens, if like we wanted a big government plan, not just for a rollout for a vaccine, but for quarantining, they should have done something to say, okay, everyone in the country has to get a test. I know it's like it was impractical because we didn't have enough tests out there, but there should have been a like no later than, I mean, hell, we're a year later, no later than August 30th of this year, people have to get tested in the month of August. Like we're going to send it out to every employer, or every apartment building is going to have it. Like we'll use New York City as a case study. I mean, every single person, like you could say the government could track and say, okay, for these individuals that have it, like you are not allowed to leave your building. And like that would have been a much better quarantine than just saying, try to stay at home as much as you can. Like at least then you could have tracked individuals. But I think the fact that testing was so sporadically done in different parts of the country, we really didn't shut down services at all. Like I feel like there was a week or two where there were runs on the groceries and nobody wanted to go out. But then after that, people just got fed up and started going out. So like I don't even think we're in like a real quarantine ever. Like, I don't think we truly quarantined.
Probably not. I mean, like maybe like in Jersey. I remember last year when like it was the height of things. It was pretty locked down, but like at the same time, though, like didn't do anything. Didn't really stop anything.
Yeah, I mean, like I thought it was impossible to do it in the city. Like, I live in an apartment building of probably 1,000 people. Um, no way could we. I mean, we have to take the dogs out at least 5 times a day. Uh, even if we use the stairs, you're going to come in contact with people, the elevator, the lobby, passing on the street. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would have been much easier to quarantine at a house with a yard. Like, yeah, stock up, have the refrigerators loaded, and a garage gym. I don't need to leave for a week. But in the city, you can't get away with that.
Yeah, so like the city's probably a different situation than people that live, like in the rural America or in the countryside or even in the suburbs. It's gonna be a different situation. But yeah, I don't know. The whole like situation, I guess kind of round up and conclude on this COVID segment is that, I think everyone, at this point should know or recognize, can make their own risk assessments on, what they're comfortable with and what they're what they should be doing and should be responding with. But at the end of the day, I think that the country, this highlights a drastic or a very key element of our society that goes unspoken, and that's importance of wellness, of physical fitness, wellness, and taking care of your body. That quite honestly, this country is getting worse and worse about.
Yeah, I just don't know what we talk about the long term repercussions, and it'll be interesting to see. That's for sure. But yeah, switching to the games because I keep seeing stuff on YouTube and Instagram. CrossFit games. How are they dealing with COVID? And how are you going to program for guys? Because like I feel like I saw stuff about dumbbells, or like they were trying to make it very um,
Yeah.
manageable for people without gyms if closures were happening.
Yeah, I think the equipment list is all you need is only one dumbbell, like a 50 or 35 pound dumbbell. You need a jump rope, you need a plyo box, you need somebody to do pull-ups, and you need a bar and weights. So like essentially only 5 things. So pretty basic raw gym, and you can do like the entire CrossFit Open. So that tells you like no ring muscle ups. It tells you no rower, no wall balls. So it'll be kind of
Mm.
interesting to see what movements they'll do because you're fairly limited in what movements you can do with those equipment things. But I mean, in general, the open is pretty basic to begin with. Like you don't get tested on like any crazy movements or crazy workouts. It's just like kind of basics, anyways.
I liked the workout from 2017 that I think it was like a 10-to-1 snatch ladder with double unders. It
You mean
was like it
the
was
dumbbell
no, no,
snatches and
no, no,
burpees?
no. It was a barbell snatch. It might have even been higher rep. It was a squat snatch and like 30 double unders, and then
Oh, those are thrusters. It was like
oh,
the
they were
10 rounds.
thrusters.
Yeah, there was one that was like 10
Oh yeah,
rounds of
okay.
like 9 thrusters and 35 double unders.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. That was like a quick workout. I really liked the 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 one until it got to handstand push-ups because
Oh yeah,
I crapped out. I hated 17.1 though. The uh single arm
the dumbbell
dumbbell
snatch. Yeah,
snatch and the over the box burpees, the
yeah.
15, that was awful. I hope they never do that again.
Yeah, I don't know. I signed up to do it. I think that if you have the capability to do it, you should probably sign up and do it.
Hmm.
My fitness level is probably shit compared to where it was like a couple years ago when I was like real into doing CrossFit. So I'm kind of curious to see where I stack up nowadays. We'll see.
Are we going to have the same people dominating CrossFit again this year? Do you see
Oh
like
yeah,
new?
yeah, 100%. Like the elite of CrossFitters are going to stay the elite CrossFitters, and those who have the capabilities to train at home with the full gym are going to be the ones that are still doing well at the CrossFit.
So interesting. I bet we see way more individuals that are outside of the United States that are very high up on the leaderboard that were taking PEDs all year because they could not go door to door with COVID to test. And these guys were going to see like ridiculous strength numbers, and then their engines are going to be out of this world because now they can clean it up when testing probably resumes. Do you think they were doing like WADA was doing testing?
I think so. I mean, I don't think CrossFit uses WADA anyways, but
No, they use someone else, but I would say just in general, like I don't see with COVID happening and with travel being restricted for so long, people were going to like a Matt Fraser's house
I think
once
so.
to make him piss.
I mean, they don't test them that often anyways. I think for CrossFit, they test it like once or twice a year. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I know for like WADA, they or like USADA for the Olympians, they get tested pretty often and very randomly. So I'm pretty sure they still test people.
Yeah, I just wonder what that looks like for like going door to door though. Like, is that because like it's not like they're just sending them a cup and saying send it back, please. Like,
Yeah,
there's agents that are going. So how do they do that with COVID? And like, do these guys have to carry around with them, a COVID result that says I did not have COVID? That's another thing with sports that we took. Last year they made it work with CrossFit, but the Olympics, like we're gonna miss like a Summer Olympics again. Like that's
yeah.
awful.
I heard that they're canceling it for this year, like officially going to cancel it because I think they can only do Tokyo. There's like a 1 year window they can do the Tokyo Olympics, and if it's past the 1 year, they can't do it. So I've heard that they're going to cancel it this year.
That's too
Which
bad.
sucks.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
gonna
let's
ask
talk
you.
about what we'd get gold in real quick. We'd get gold in women's soccer. We'd get gold in 90% of the track events, not really any of the
Hmm,
field events.
track events. I don't know.
I think we would still destroy on track, like maybe not
Swimming.
not the 100 meter. Swimming, yeah, I would say the bulk of medals would go to us. Relays would be more challenging. Yeah, men's soccer would be crap. Um, Basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball would definitely win gold. Um, yeah, yeah,
Definitely not
gold medals.
gymnastics.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like the two routines in the last year that like ESPN has highlighted from gymnasts out of UCLA. Like, I don't know anything about gymnastics, but like I'm guessing that's like a powerhouse towards the Olympic US team. Like those are really like fun to watch, really athletic. I bet gymnastics. We were always like number one or two anyway against
Yeah.
China.
Definitely not weightlifting or anything like strength sports.
Oh, no, no. Wasn't this year too? They were going to do the Olympic Committee opened up that if for trans athletes to compete though, like you just had to be taking a year of hormone therapy.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I have to look into that. I'd be interested to see because I watched a thing on like for at least endurance sports, um, the athletes that go from male to female and transition with their hormone regimen see like a 10 to 12% drop in their speeds, which makes them competitive with like cisgender women. I was going to be interested to see if that had any impact on qualifying for the Olympics, or actually at the Olympics, if that was not uh, a ban, or if it had been lifted.
Yeah, I think that's a good because I think I saw you remember that like New Zealand or Australian trans weightlifter that went from like
Yeah,
male to female that still like wasn't that good and like didn't win any medals or something like that.
yeah, but didn't she like snap her elbow on a snatch? Like I
I
feel like
don't yeah, I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
she was snatching like 245, 265, I think, which is still like I think it doesn't Mangold snatch like 308 or something, or like
Yeah.
320. Like she's a powerhouse.
But it's just like even the ones that transfer over aren't like experiencing success, which is a good, I don't know, you know.
That yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it happens going forward. I know President Biden signed that executive order, and I'll be interested to see how states react. But you said you had a question?
Yeah, we someone asked us last week on a Q&A to talk about the whole Ranger qualified versus Ranger debate.
Oh, oh yeah, because of
Senator.
Senator Cotton
Yeah,
and Congressman. Oh, now I'm forgetting his name. From Colorado.
yeah. Someone asked us to chat a little bit about that, but
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. My dad was Ranger qualified. I always thought that's what it meant to be Ranger until, I had a mentor that had been in Ranger Regiment, was like, don't ever say that again. Like, he took it, very personally. And I took that personally. Um, I think there is a difference. Like, every single one of the Rangers that serves in the Ranger Regiment is a Ranger. You don't have to have your tab to be a Ranger. But I think that distinction needs to be articulated once you get your tab. Like, I don't know. I feel privileged because I was in the Ranger Regiment, so I don't really lose on either side of this argument. But yeah, I would say Ranger qualified needs to be something you say if you introduce yourself as an Army Ranger. Like, you can't say I'm an Army Ranger unless you were in regiment. You can say I'm Ranger qualified. And I think then that, you know at least acknowledges the difference between a unit and a school.
yeah, I'd agree on that sentiment. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's like nuances and like the people that really care about that probably like, it's probably not that, I guess, big of a deal. In my mind, it's like, who really cares if someone says they're Ranger? It's just like, sure, you know, we were both in Ranger Regiment, went to Ranger school, and we're Ranger in the sense of being a Ranger. But at the same time, though, like, why does it matter? Like, if for someone that's trying to say that they're Ranger, by talking to them, you're going to realize that no, they weren't actual Rangers. So at the end of the day, like,
Yeah,
what
so who are you
matter?
competing against?
Yeah,
It's not like you're both standing at a bar and you're trying to impress one person. Like, people that know. I would say it would be analogous to, oh, are you airborne qualified? And if you're airborne qualified, saying you're a paratrooper, well, clearly there's going to be a couple units in the Army that are pissed off
yeah,
that you call yourself a paratrooper when you're just a five jump chump. Like that, I think that would be probably, just as easy of an argument to make.
yeah. I mean, that's a very analogous argument, but at the same time, though, like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
if you're talking to some, like, I guess the only really would it really matter for people that don't know about the difference, but then at the same time, though, the type of person that's going to tell you that they're a ranger without being in ranger regiment is the same type of person that's going to lie about their service either way. So why does it matter? Like, you know,
Yeah. And two, if you're getting out and you're coming from Ranger Regiment or you have your Ranger tab, like, those are both great things to distinguish yourself apart from your peers. So regardless, like, we're worried about a population that is in the top 1% of the military as it is. Like, that's not the people that we should be really like harping on for maybe some nuanced language. If it's a whole bunch of us just sitting around and it's like you, me, and a couple of our buddies that are qualified, like, everybody knows that how to differentiate the term ranger and what it really means. But none of us care to the extent that we're going to like go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to call it out. I thought that was just that was silly. I can't, like, I thought it was funny. I definitely sent it to some of my friends, like, privately. It's like, look at this. Like, there's war on the hill, but nobody really gives a shit. Like, I don't
yeah. I
really
feel
care. I don't
like,
take it personally.
yeah, I know like some of the memes, like the meme accounts, like take that shit personally and take it seriously, but at the same time, though, like, I don't know, it doesn't really bother me that much when someone says that because it's like it doesn't, um, doesn't what's the term I'm looking for? It doesn't denigrate my service or doesn't like take away
Yeah.
from like what I've done or take away from my experience. Like, I really don't care if you
Now, what I
say,
thought was great in that argument, and I think is an argument everyone can get behind. Uh, so Congressman Jason Crow, I think he was in 275, at least from the Flash.
yeah,
Um, I think it was like General Thomas or something called him out for like that pettiness for going after Tom Cotton. But him wearing his beret, I think, is a bigger issue we should always focus on, because that's not just a Ranger issue. That's a Ranger Green Beret. When you're wearing a black beret formation, when you're in the 82nd with your maroon beret, people wear the beret like shit. Like, the congressman's beret looked awful. Like it was goofy. Like
Oh,
where's your platoon sergeant to square you away? Like
that's my beret.
there's like a really nice wear to wear the beret. Like I feel like every single field grade and above in regiment had theirs, and it looked really well. Like just straight on the forehead. You know, it's smaller, kind of just gets right over the ear. And then you had guys that, yeah, like I don't know how you wore your beret. Yeah, so your beret is like fine, like that is,
Throwback.
yeah, that's completely in standard. Like, but like you see how the flash, like I see guys, I call it like the rhino horn. They like, yes, like that. When I see people wear a beret like that, I want to throw it like a frisbee off their head. Like when it covers one complete eye, when the flash is parallel to the ground, like that stuff grinds my gears. Um, that I don't know. But I think this is a
Throwback.
better question than the Ranger School, Ranger Regiment thing.
Yeah. I haven't worn this in a while, but throwback to my days of wearing a beret.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. I thought it was like funny for a second, and then it just was like, all right, we need to stop talking about this because people were just getting butthurt. It was like the other thing we saw on social media about people bragging about 100% disability rating from the
oh
VA
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that aren't actually disabled. Like that kind of goes back to our PTSD discussion that we had a couple weeks ago. Um, like that's a larger issue that we should be focused on, not the
Mm,
distinction for 1% of a population.
yeah. I think we've talked about that before in the past too, about how, gaming the VA and then getting like 100% disability for guys that have never really deployed or done anything really significant, and like guys that get blown up that
Yeah.
don't get 100%. It's like a travesty, and we're kind of beating that horse, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. The military is a unique branch where they make you stay in shape. Um, but just to consider like really quickly, an analogous situation for a civilian workforce, I find it shocking that the Army and the government's willing to pay for issues that you develop just for doing the same things you would do if you weren't in the military. Like staying
Mm.
in shape is not completely unique to military service. So like if you injured yourself working out in the military, you can be like, yeah, chalking that up to I got to prepare for the PT test. But in reality, like I'm going to do I would have done the exact same thing if I was a civilian, and my civilian boss shouldn't, be footing the bill for however many years afterwards for that one injury. Like that's some of the stuff I think people need to consider when we start, you know, chalking up actual disabilities to, just things that happen as you age or you progress in fitness and, you know, deployments.
Yeah, I think it's like I mean, I'm all for, guys getting taken care of, but at the same time though, like there should be a certain point where you're just like, I'm just trying to game the system versus I actually need to get this because I'm actually messed up from something.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the big ones that we're talking about. So if you heard this argument before, we're sorry, but like ED, um, sleep apnea, like obesity related kind of things. Those are the ones that I don't think the government should even consider spending money on, or spending taxpayer dollars for. There's a million things like ED. I don't know how that's related to service. Like, oh, stressful situations, you're going to have that anywhere. Sleep apnea, dude, you got fat. Like, you were in a service that made you stay in shape as part of your payment for, you're signing up, and you still got overweight. Like, the Army's not responsible for that. That's just like negligence on your part. So, like, that's the kind of stuff that I think should be scrapped from the VA. And I think we would save a lot of money as a society if we stopped funding that disability.
Yeah, I think that's like like it's like policy, how like one person decides policy and that just becomes the new standard for across the board. And I think that like, the thought process behind, taking care of guys then just gets, that sentiment gets like spread across, and then all of a sudden you're taking care of everything that.
Well, yeah, like here's one that should be looked at for a disability instead. The amount of women that what's the term when you can't have a child when you're a woman? Not bear is not the right word. That's like the crass,
Become
but
infertile, I
yeah,
guess.
infertility.
Yeah.
Infertility for women should be one that you should be able to get a disability for. I've never ETS as one, so I'm not even sure if they test that, but that's an actual thing. How many friends have we had in the military that can't like get pregnant? Males that are infertile for, either the stress, like that's kind of stuff, or like male pattern baldness. Like there's definitely a correlation between wearing helmets 24/7 and guys with like receding hairlines. But again, these are all like really male focused, but there's got to be some female specific issues, like why ED is covered. But if infertility for women isn't, like, again, that's like a gender issue that should be addressed by the military and by the VA system.
Yeah, I was like, I always thought it was interesting that the military doesn't cover infertility treatments. Like,
It's
won't
unbelievable.
pay for
I
that.
don't know why. Like they cover um one, what's the word? One elective surgery.
That's not really true.
Okay, that's a generality, but like they'll cover doing your eyes. I know you can do breast augmentation with it. Like, I don't understand why it's not doing the exact same thing for people that are trying to have children.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, yeah, I don't know why the military doesn't pay for like fertility treatments because I mean that's such a huge component of like um
Life.
yeah of
Well,
like a mental and social.
the military is paying for, like transitions and stuff for soldiers that identify one way or the other, and supporting that change. I don't know why we're not doing it for like a next generation and making sure that some soldier's wife or that soldier themselves that's infertile can't have an opportunity, to have a family. Like, I don't get that. Or if we're not going to do that as a military, the military should then help foot the bill for adoptions. Like, adoption costs are super high up front. The military should be like, all right, you get a one-time adoption fee if we find that like you or your spouse is infertile. And then all of a sudden, there you go, you can start, growing a family that way and promoting that extent of your life. Like, but again, I'm not a policymaker, but I feel like that's a much bigger thing than ED for the VA or sleep apnea.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with you on that. But yeah, that's one thing that I don't really get behind
No.
because
No, yeah.
I've done plenty of breast reduction surgeries for active duty service members, which I can get the breast reduction side of things because it can cause like back problems. As an aside, and as not to be like unprofessional, but every breast reduction I've done, I always think of the Superbad quote. That scene in Superbad
Oh, yeah.
where they're
Why,
talking
why
about,
would you do that?
yeah, about she had breast reduction. And it's like, why would you do that? It's like slapping God in the face. And then she's like, and then look up, she's like, she had back problems, man.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember. I mean, I think that's like,
That's
that's a
valid. That's valid.
that's a valid thing, especially for service. Like, we don't want people not being able to perform at
Yeah.
higher levels. But I don't know. I just think there's something wrong. And the comment section too for some of these pages, especially the one that brought it up, highlighted how it's this kind of bullying that prevents people that really have issues from going and getting seen. I don't buy that argument either. If you really have a disability, when you're getting checked out, it's going to become apparent. Like, nobody is arguing that if you are truly hurt or injured, you're not supposed to see a physician. We're arguing that the people that are, 100% disabled, that don't have a Purple Heart from service, that weren't injured in the actual line of duty, that just did it through like rolling an ankle here and there, hurting your wrist, I don't know, like and then stacking up with the ED and sleep apnea, PTSD, like claims and not seeing combat, like those are all the ones that compound these smaller injuries that add up to 100. Like, that's the stuff I think people are the most distrustful of this process in, because people can game the system. There's no way to test for ED. There's no way. Sleep apnea, they put a machine on you. If you eat McDonald's for 3 weeks going into the test, you're going to test for sleep apnea. Like that, like that's just one of those easy things to game. So I don't know. I just don't want people fraud, waste, and abuse. Like, save some money for the people that really need it. Because one day, I mean, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. if we're going to run a huge deficit, eventually the money's going to dry up somewhere. And I would hate for it to be on service members that, were actually disabled, and needing that money versus the guy that didn't do anything while he was in the service and thinks he's owed something. Like, you signed up for this. Like, we have to keep reminding people that this is not, I'm not signing up expecting that when I get out in however many years, the GI Bill's great, but the expectation is that I'm not going to get money because my lower back hurt for a couple years wearing plate carriers. Like, that's not appropriate.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's
I
exactly
agree.
what I have. Like, you put down, like, where you win, yeah, here's 10% for your back. There's my mobility on my wrist, and that's 10%. Like, I was shocked that I got anything at all. It was like, that's nuts. Like, this is just from working out.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's just like the rule of thumb is like, if you're intentionally trying to increase your disability percent, then you're probably not a good person.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
But I guess we will start wrapping it with that. Anything
Yeah.
else you got?
We've got the new Ranger school guide coming out. So there's going to be more like stability type workout movements involved, with like hand release push-ups, with the, these hanging knee raises. So you'll see some pretty repetitive movements in there just to develop those skills. But the same running program is going to be there, your same rucking. It's just going to be more tempoed and varied lifting alternatives.
And I guess I'm still working on doing the functional fitness, continuing that pre-open programming. I think it's like we're 5 or 6 weeks out now from the open. Sign up for the open, use the hashtag CronusFit to get tracked on our leaderboard. And like last year, we'll send you some swag if you, top 5 or whoever are on the board. We'll send you some free swag this year. That's about all I have. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the listening in today, guys. Especially, we covered a lot on COVID, so hopefully your mind has changed on maybe some things that you thought about based on what our resident doctor said. And make sure, if you're in the military, you watch a show on the military. So if people have questions about what service is like and you haven't seen Band of Brothers, you know what to quote.
And then, if you're a medical professional, you should probably wear scrubs too, or suits if you're a lawyer.
Yeah, suits, scrubs, and take your vaccine if you're a medical professional too, apparently.
Yeah, I felt fine. For those that care at this point, if you're still listening, I felt absolutely fine after both of my vaccines, both my shots.
Yeah, but
My
that
arm,
face that grew on your stomach like talks way too much. Like the eyes don't even look straight.
yeah. What's that in Total Recall? What's his name?
It was like sclub blub, like blub blar. Like, it was something.
Yeah, yeah, Total Recall.
Restart the machine.
Yeah, I mean, like, Christina got like kind of feverish and chills this after her second one, but like literally, I felt fine. I had literally no issues with my shots. My arm was a little bit sore after the first one. Second one, like I was sore for a day, but that was it for me. But I'm also I feel like my immune system is pretty well developed at this point too. Like I don't really get sick anymore. I like stopped getting sick like in high school. Like past high school, I haven't been sick in a long time.
I haven't been to the doctor in years for like feeling sick. I got NyQuil and Dayquil. I'll just cut the two of them together based on the
Yeah,
time of the day.
yeah. Also, like I've been taking like antibiotics since probably high school. I used to get like
Yeah.
sinus infections a lot in high school.
Z-Packs, they were great.
Yeah,
They work.
yeah. But then
All
like,
right.
yeah, well, when with that?
We'll talk about The Bachelor next week for everyone that's wondering
No.
my take on it. And if Michelle or Victoria could be the one, are we going to see a turnaround for Matt? I don't know. Stay tuned.
Although I have been watching some of the episodes because Christina now watches The Bachelor,
Yeah,
so I've been
you're
like
gonna get hooked.
transiently watching it when she watches it on
Good. Well,
at
then
night.
watch tomorrow's, and we'll have a lively conversation next week.
I'm not gonna watch
You're
everything. I
gonna
don't even
watch
know.
tomorrow.
I just know the one lady, the one chick that's like a huge biatch.
Jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, huge
Bully.
biatch.
Yeah, the Mean Girls. I love it. The Mean Girls season's here.
I like
But
this. I like the scene when the girls, the new girls rolled up and like it was like Miss Puerto Rico, and then what's her face takes
Victoria took
yeah.
the crown.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's hilarious. That's hilarious
Yeah, that's a
actually.
boss move. I mean, but that's not going to get you a prophylactic tea endorsement on Instagram when you get out. Like maybe you'll get a Skechers like ad here and there, but that's about it. But we'll talk about this next week because that's really what everyone's listening for.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, guys. We'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.